So we do offer the AirMech air handlers, extremely quiet air handlers that can be used in a variety of different configurations. We will have soon a variable speed air handler as well that will match extremely well with the altherma. The air handlers we're carrying work in the 120 degree range because it's important that you don't just select any air handler. You have to have air handlers which will work in the 115, 120 degree range very effectively. But these, of course, can be used with chilled water or hot water. Mycin has a whole new generation of very high-quality fan convectors. They're low-line units, can use chilled water or hot water. And also now they're high-line units, or chilled or hot water. These obviously look very much like a mini-split unit, but they're using hot and chilled water instead. You'll see more and more offerings in this regard in terms of termination units from us in the next 2-3 months. Domestic hot water, very simply, we're running this warm water through the heat exchanger. We have a sensor in there that is dynamically examining the water temperature, and there's a booster heater within this. Now, that water can go to 131 degrees going into domestic hot water. When you're dealing with electric, this is an electric heat pump, or it could be an electric resistance system, that they have the recovery of an electric water heater, which is far less than a gas-fired water heater. So one has to be attuned to this when you're dealing with an air-to-water heat pump. We do have a 3 to 4.5 kilowatt tank element to assist in recovery rates if desired. There's a 6 kilowatt receiver element, and when I showed you that hydro box and the little storage vessel in there, that's 6 kilowatt booster in there. But by far the most effective way of dealing with recovery rates with a heat pump is storage. So we have 3 sizes of 50, 80, and 119 gallons. I think you'll find in most cases in California you'll be using 80 or 119 gallons because, as again, storage is a very important component when your recovery rates are not going to be near that of gas. You can see that you can have, up to 50-minute recovery rates on the on the 5-ton or 4.5-ton unit. That is a design consideration and one we can talk about in more depth. Also, you can take the Daikin tank and indirect water heater and put an expensive storage tank and charge that storage tank if you have a large custom home or extremely high hot water demands within the facility. So, a couple items that do belong together, and you'll see them more and more integrated as time goes on, are the solar hot water. Solar hot water for several reasons. Solar hot water because with the new state of Title 24 becoming all the more stringent, solar hot water is something as a silver bullet in terms of compliance. Also, you'll see why we want to use solar hot water in net zero energy systems. But also solar hot water is a great thing to include because you now have extra capacity of solar, either in a single tank or dual tank configuration to provide that extra buffer of domestic hot water that is advisable when using electric or heat pump domestic hot water systems. So what you'll see is they have a European system, and I'll show you our U.S. system, but it's basically having an external heat exchanger and pumping systems up to the solar collectors, which we offer. We offer a complete package with the solar collector and all the components and the tanks for an integrated system. In our one-tank system, we're using a Takeo solar pump block and a pumpless solar module in configuration with this. If we're doing a closed loop configuration, we also have drain back configurations and a single tank configuration. We have those designs as well. As you may be aware, single tank configurations are extremely popular in Europe and are by far the most popular way of going, A, because of space, and B, because of economy. There are also good reasons, particularly in our much higher domestic hot water usage patterns in California, to have a two-tank conventional solar hot water system, which we supply as a OG 300 component package in conjunction with our Daikin Altherma indirect water heater, and that creates an ideal buffer situation for high domestic hot water load conditions. We'll touch on this a little more a little further on, but I think what you're going to see is solar hot water is going to become a more and more widely used and integral portion of use in homes in California in new construction. And we're very committed to this. We do have a complete division related to integration of solar hot water in with both our altherma and gas-fired solutions. So there are three different configurations when we're dealing with the Daikin system, and these can be familiar to those who've dealt with heat pumps in general. In Euro speak, we have the monovalent type of system where you use 100% heat pump to manage the capacity, or provide the capacity for the entire system. So, on your y-axis, the heating requirements, and then the number of hours being employed during the year, x-axis. And in this case, we're using entire heat pump capacity. We will have no backup on this system. So if maybe that relates to if somebody doesn't want to have any backup, they can be sized such. A much more common is what is the mono-energetic sizing methodology, where we'll size a system where it will have 90 to, in our Mediterranean zones, maybe 95 to 97% of the load will be managed by the heat pump without any backup. And the electric element will be used 3, 4, 5, maybe up to 10% of the time to meet extraordinary peak load requirements in, let's call it December, for heating. The fact of the matter is this can turn out to be a much more economic way. Our COPs can even rise relating to this, using this system over going all heat pump. We'll touch on that further in our selection seminar that we'll be doing. I'll talk about that a little later to go into further detail. They also have what's referred to as a bivalent system. There are marketplaces where you'll have an existing, let's say, propane boiler, and you want to be able to just leave that in place for peak requirements and put a heat pump in to handle the vast majority of the load. That is also there are built-in contactors and devices for switching between heat sources if that becomes an interesting option, a dual fuel type of approach. This is very popular in the very cold environments where this is used in Europe. The vast majority is used in latitudes that are above 48 in Europe. So the operating range, we can operate between, for heating, between 77 and 122 degrees, down to -4 Fahrenheit. Obviously, we don't care about 95 degrees outside for heating. In terms of cooling, domestic hot water, again, above the 122 degrees, we will be using a booster system. The unit will not generate domestic hot water above 90